Hey guys, welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Today we're going to do an in-depth instruction on how to fish a topwater walking bait and show you exactly how Lee Livesey was able to catch 42 pounds in the Bassmaster Elite Series on Championship Sunday. Before we get started today, I want to take a little time to talk to you guys for a few minutes about the Fish Life app. The Fish Life app is something that we are so proud of here at your Lake Fork Guide. We work very hard to put nothing but the best information, and we are very proud to be able to honestly tell you that that tournament was won on a Fish Life spot. Now, I am in no way insinuating that Lee Livesey needed the Fish Life app to find that spot. I've seen Lee fish that spot before the Fish Life app was even in existence, so not trying to insinuate that at all. But what I am telling you is the type of information that you'll find on the Fish Life app is absolutely second to none. It is the most detailed, the most current, the most accurate information you can find from any bass fishing app throughout the entire industry. It's unbelievable the amount of success that our users have been able to have using this app. And you guys see videos from week to week, and a lot of times, most of the time, we're fishing on spots featured on the Fish Life app. Sometimes when I travel to new lakes like Rayburn and Toledo, the Fish Life app helps me cut down the learning curve on new places I fish. Basically, on the Fish Life app, what you're going to find is every lake that we have on there. It's not just Lake Fork. Obviously, the Lake Fork premium package is pretty good considering what we just saw last Sunday, but the other lakes that we have as well, on every lake we have a partner that's on that lake full-time that provides the information for us. Every single month you're going to get fresh waypoints, you're going to get updated descriptions. What you're going to find is waypoints on these lakes that have exact descriptions over what type of area it is, what type of baits are working best there, and you're going to be able to pull up to a lake you've never been to before and have all the confidence in the world that you're going to be around fish and have some idea how to catch them as soon as you get there. And as far as the lakes that we feature, man, there's quite a few. Now, it is kind of a regional deal for here in East Texas, but we've got a Lake Fork, of course. We've got Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend. We've got Ray Roberts. We've got Lake Grapevine, Lake Louisville, Lake Texoma, Ray Hubbard, Lake Lavon. We've got all of our power plant lakes in East Texas, Lake Welsh, Brandy Branch, Martin Creek. That's in our power plant lakes package. We've got Lake of the Pines. We've got Lake Hallbrook. We've got Lake Palestine. As you can see, there's quite a few lakes. So if you're going to fish any of these lakes, just go download the Fish Life app for free, scroll through our list of lakes, cost you absolutely nothing. And if there's a lake on there that interests you, a lake that you're going to be fishing, a lake you want to learn more about, maybe you already fish it, but you want to learn more about it or get a different perspective, be sure you subscribe to the Fish Life app on the lake of your choice. And I promise you, you will catch more and bigger fish. And the thing I'm looking forward to the most is, will there be a Bassmaster Classic 1 on a spot featured on the Fish Life app? Because let me tell you something, guys. We got the Ray Roberts package. It's a very good package with very high quality information, as all of us are. So it'll be very interesting to see when the Bassmaster Classic shows up in June to Ray Roberts. Maybe we can claim an Elite Series victory that was won on one of our spots and a Classic that was won on one of our spots in the same year. That would be something that nobody else, as far as fishing apps go in the industry, could probably claim, I wouldn't imagine. So pretty awesome, man. We're pretty excited about the success it's had. We can't wait to see the success that it will continue to have going forward. You know, one of the other highlights of our years, I had a customer get my boat on a guide trip. It was just him, but he captained a high school team on a lake that he didn't have any real experience on, and he was able to use that Fish Life app for that high school tournament. And those kids won a very substantial scholarship based on how they performed using the Fish Life app. So, you know, for those people, the subscription is more than paid for itself, because those kids have got a big scholarship that they've won through fishing using the Fish Life app. It's been really awesome and honoring and humbling, and you saw all those things, like all those cliche terms, they're all real right now. I feel all of them. I'm so proud of what we've done with the Fish Life app. So let's get into topwater walking baits, and let's get into Lee Livesey and his 42-pound championship day bag out here on Lake Fork. First of all, well, I know I said it in another video, but Lee, god dang, congratulations, man. You are now an official all-time legend. That island that you won off of, I'm renaming that. That's Lee Island forevermore, as far as I'm concerned. Like my kids and my grandkids will call it that if I have anything to say about it. But just an awesome job by Lee, awesome execution, awesome performance. That being said, Lee did capitalize on a topwater walking bait bite, and every year at Lake Fork, when you get that water up around 70 degrees and you start to get a mix of post-spawn as well as pre-spawn bass on these shallow points on the shad spawn deal, man, that topwater bait really seems to be one of the best ways to go about it. And when they're on that bite, they absolutely demolish it. As you guys probably saw in the Bassmaster footage, they were just crushing that topwater bait. So it's a technique that you need to kind of understand how to do. You need to understand where to do it. You need to know how to walk the dog. And for these big fish around all the timber on Lake Fork, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right equipment. So I thought we would take time and go over all that in depth today. Well, let's start off with the simplest part. The simplest part is the bait selection. The bait selection is really, really simple. You want shad pattern topwater walking baits. There's two different ones I use, two different sizes. The first one's going to be the Catwalk from 6th Sense Fishing. Really like this bait. It's really easy to walk. If you're new to walking topwater baits, get you a Catwalk from 6th Sense. It has kind of a V-shaped bottom. It makes it super easy to walk the dog with this bait right here. And I'm not even sure what this color is, but I really like this color right here on cloudy days. It's got like a gold side. It's got a blue top. I really like this color on overcast days like you see today. Now, the color that we saw everybody using in the tournament, from Patrick Walters to Lee Livesey to basically everybody, was a bone color. This is a 6th Sense Mag Dog 130, and the color you see here is Spanish Bone Pearl. But any type of a bone or a pearl is going to be able to work for you. Also, those guys were using a different brand of topwater baits. It looked like to me they were using Head and Zara Spooks. I really like the 6th Sense baits. You guys know I'm sponsored by them, but I also believe in them. They make top-notch hard baits. I mean, all the stuff they make is so good. But the one that I'm using for my big topwater, if I want to throw the biggest plug I can out there on a topwater bait, which I like to do when the gizzard shad are running on these points, I use the Mag Dog 130 from 6thsensefishing.com. By the way, anything that you hear me mention today from 6thsensefishing.com, 6thsensefishing.com is linked in the description. You can go order the baits there, and if you punch in the code Your Lake Fork Guide, it'll get you a 10% discount on all orders. But when it comes to color selection, don't overthink it, guys. Get you a bone, get you a pearl, get you another kind of darker, more realistic shad color. And I like these white bone or pearl ones I really like on the bright days, and then the more natural color ones I like on the darker days. And this may be a little contrary to normal thinking, but the deal is when the sun's out real bright, those fish actually have a harder time seeing something on the surface when the sun's real bright. So I like to use the harder colors on the brighter days. And when it's cloudy or overcast, they actually can see color and everything else better on the surface when it's cloudy, because there's not as much glare from the sun. So I like to use the more natural colors when it's cloudier. So now let's talk about rod, reel, and line. And you're really going to need two different rods for these two different baits. As you can see, there's a pretty substantial size difference. There's definitely a weight difference in those two baits. On the Catwalk, I like to throw a medium heavy rod. I like to throw a 7.1 to 7.3, 7.4 medium heavy rod. You don't need a super sensitive rod. It's topwater. You know, you want to have some bend in that rod, but you don't have to have like an overly sensitive rod by any means, because you can see them hit it, right? So, but you do want to have some flex in that tip, because anytime you're fishing a treble hook bait, especially treble hooks of that size right there, you're going to want to have some shock absorption in your rod. With the bigger one, man, it's just so heavy. The treble hooks are bigger. I don't need as much bend in the rod. I like to use something long. One thing about it, I use longer rods. Like, I really tend to use the 7.4 medium heavy for the Catwalk, and then I'll use like a 7.7 heavy or a 7.6 heavy for this bait right here. And I don't need the bend in the rod on this one, because I have bigger treble hooks, as much bend in the rod anyway. But one thing I like about having those longer rods is I can make super long casts. And guys, when you're on these points, some of these points, like the one that Lee Livesey fished, which you guys will see some drone shots of today in the footage, the one Lee Livesey fished, it's a super long, expansive point. And a lot of these shallow points are that these shad, and they can pop up anywhere on there. So to have the ability to make an extra long cast, those fish could come up busting shad anywhere, and you want to get that bait on them right now when they do that. We actually saw Lee do that on Championship Sunday, where he was making these long bomb casts when they would come up blowing up on shad, and he was able to capitalize and catch really big fish doing that. So use a little bit longer rod than you normally would on, say, like a Yellow Magic or normal popper, or just fishing shallow. You know, if I was fishing shallow water with a little, you know, walking bait like the Catwalk, I would be okay throwing a 7-foot medium or a 6.9 medium or medium heavy, a shorter rod, more accurate. But when I'm out on these points on the shad spawn deal, I want to be able to bomb that thing out there as far away from the boat as I can when they come up. Reel is going to be important for casting ability also. You want to go ahead, if you're trying to set up your ultimate topwater setup, you want to go ahead and spend a little extra money on your reel on this deal so that you can make longer casts. The reel that I like the most is going to be the Team Lose Light Speed Spool. That one right there. Love this reel right here. It's my favorite reel that I own. It's just a good all-around reel. Has a lot of line capacity on it, but man, it can bomb baits out there, no doubt about it. So let's talk about line for a second, because the one thing you don't want to do is use fluorocarbon line. Fluorocarbon is going to sink under the surface, and it's going to affect your walking action on your topwater. You're not going to be able to fish that bait correctly. But one thing, so you got to go with either braid or monofilament. It's a personal preference. On Lake Fork, I like to go with braid. There's a lot of times when these fish will make a run towards stumps on these shallow points. Now this one I'm on right now doesn't have too many stumps on it, but a lot of these points out here have a lot of stumps on them. And when those fish start running towards those trees, I like having the braid, because if I need to take a chance and pour some coals to them and really horse them, the braid's gonna help me and allow me to do that. If I have mono, it doesn't matter how hard I pull, I'm not gonna be able to control these bigger fish. So I really like using braid. I typically use 30-pound braid on my topwater walking baits. That's pretty simple stuff. Now let's talk to you about, I mean, the gear is really pretty simple stuff. The two complicated things are the areas, finding the areas that you're going to fish them in, and that's really not that complicated. And then walking the dog. There's some technique to that you certainly are going to, it's going to take you some time to learn. Try not to get frustrated with it. Let's talk about the areas right now. Like we showed you on the drone shots, and you can see some of these clay points extending out on some of these drone shots. These clay points are going to contain shell bed, a little bit of rock, maybe some iron ore, some type of gravel. There's going to be hard, shallow, extending points. That's what you're looking for. You can find these on the map by looking at your contours and looking for those really shallow points that extend out. You can also find these by driving around the lake and just looking for red clay, like wherever the red clay point is, like the one you guys see behind me right here. See that red clay on that point? That's what you're looking for. That's going to be a harder surface than any of our sandy loam soil or other soils that we have in Lake Fork. It's going to be much harder. That is what you want. You want those clay points. Also the birds. The birds this time of year, especially the blue herons, can really help you identify. You know, some of the longer points, like the one that Lee fished, the herons aren't really going to get on there unless the fish are super, super, super shallow, which is kind of somewhat rare. A lot of times on those longer points, they'll be out off the bank a ways, kind of offshore, but still in a couple feet, 3 feet of water. On the shorter points like this one right here, the birds will absolutely get on that and tell you when there's activity present. So if you're driving down the lake and you see 4 or 5 blue herons lined up on a point, hey, you need to go there like right now if it's April or May, I'm just telling you, or June for that matter. So it's a pretty simple process to find. A, do some map study, find the extended points. B, look for the red clay. C, look for the birds. All those things combined, man, you just run as many as you can. That's the other key component about these areas, is you pull up and you make some casts, and if they don't bite, you move on to the next one. Quentin Capo had a great tournament, a great finish, and he was the one that did that the best in my opinion. He was running so many points because every time the camera popped up on him, he was at a different spot. And I'm seeing he was up at Glade, then he was down in, he was here. He was on this point right here, halfway up Little Caney. Then he was all the way up, you know, near the 2946 bridge. He was running all over the place, running and gunning, and that's really what you want to do. Guys, this is a deal where when you pull up and it's going down, it's not going to take you very long to find out. So don't sit there and think, well, I'm on a really good point, I found a really good point, I'm going to sit here and wait on them to come to me. You could do that and it could possibly work out, and you could do that and you could zero. I like the process of running as many of them as I can and giving myself more opportunities to collide with feeding fish. It's all about finding those fish when they pull up on that point to feed, because we can have all the fish in the world around this point right now behind us. If they're not pull up here feeding, it's going to be hard to catch them. It's going to be a grind, it's going to be slow. But if we pull up when they're up there feeding, we're going to catch them as fast as we want to catch them. So running gun in this pattern. All right, let's get up there and try to show you guys how we walk the dog. All right, you're going to want to make long bomb casts, like I said. And I will tell you guys one thing before we get started. If you're new to it, like I said, get the catwalk. The smaller ones are much easier to walk than the larger ones. Larger ones take a little more touch, a little more experience to walk than the smaller ones do. So we're gonna cast the bait on out there. Even with that little flick of the wrist, that bait just landed. Like, this reel slings it, I'm telling you. So what you want to do is create a 45-degree angle with the rod and the line, reel your slack up, and then you're just going to twitch the end of your slack. And you're going to do it in a rhythm like this right here. And what I like to do is take the butt of the rod and slap it on my forearm. And what that does is when I'm slapping it on my forearm, I time that with the butt hitting my forearm right when I hit the end of my slack. And it makes the rod twitch the slack and then bounce straight back towards the bait. And what that makes the rod tip bounce back towards the bait. And what that's going to do is allow that bait to walk. Because what you're doing is pulling it towards you, then letting go, and it walks. You pull it towards you, let it go, and it walks. And having that sharp stop on my forearm allows me to do that much more sharply. And that's the whole key, is you're just trying to twitch the end of your slack, just You're just twitching the end of slack is all you're doing. And that bait is walking, walking, walking. As you can see, I'll get a drone shot of the bait walking here. You can see that's what you want it to look like, side to side, side to side. That's all you want. Good thing is when they come up and blow up on it, especially with this braid, you just kind of lift your rod and reel into them. So if one blows up on it right now, I'm just gonna pull it up and just start reeling it. And just kind of reel set it a little bit. You don't really have to set the hook when you got these treble hook baits and you got braid. That being said, having the right rod is so important because once you hook them up, you can play them a little bit, but if they start making a run towards timber, you also have that braid so you can go ahead and start horsing them more if you need to. You know, everything in rod and line selection is all about getting the right combination of power and shock absorption. Every technique has something a little different that it needs. Some are real similar and you can get away with same setups on a lot of stuff, but every technique is going to have a certain amount of power that you need and a certain amount of shock absorption that you need, and that's why I've selected the rods and line that I told you guys I selected earlier. All right, guys, that's how I fish topwater walking baits. Go get some catwalks, go get some mag dogs from 6incefishing.com. Use that code, Your Lake Fork Guide. Then go subscribe to the Fish Life app. Go catch more and bigger fish using all these techniques we taught you today. Hey, I certainly hope this helps you catch more and bigger fish. I do appreciate you watching as always. It means so much to me that I get to do. I mean, this last week with this tournament and getting to talk to all those guys and go back to like, this has been unbelievable, man. It's an unbelievable ride that I'm only on because of each and every one of you. So thank y'all so very much, and we will see you next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide. I'm gonna keep fishing. Is that okay with y'all? It doesn't really matter if it is or not. I'm gonna keep fishing. Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! One just missed it. Come on, come back. How cool would that have been?